Time to talk about time. Okay guys, we're going to talk about this clock and we're going to go over this and we're going to look at it. But what we're trying to do here is not just look at a device that's measuring hours of a day or a calendar that's measuring months out of the year. What we want to do is look at time differently. Look at the expression of time, the order of time, the beauty of time, the symmetry of how a pattern of a day is the same pattern as a year. So instead of looking at time as an hour and a day, and the days in a week, and the weeks in the month, and the months in a year, but how do these all express something? How do they tell a story? How do they show us what time is? Time is alive. And I think we're losing sight of that as a society and as a culture, of just not being able to appreciate time, not being able to appreciate a day, appreciate the order of the seasons. You know, we're in New England and it's winter and it's snowing and we don't like it. We complain. But wow, what an amazing way to see that, geez, we live in the northern hemisphere. We get to see winter. We get to see the true change of every season. And so it's a marvelous place to live, but we don't really appreciate time, so we don't see it. Okay? So we're going to get into this, and basically we're going to look at this in all the different attributes of time. Many of them are living, whether they be beings or angels or seats. We're going to look at them, and we're going to see how time is a marvelous expression. But let me first show you how I got started in this, or how I began to draw essentially this pattern that you see. And how I got started was I took the cherubim in Ezekiel chapter 1 verse 10, and I drew them on a piece of paper just like this. Okay, let me just kind of put it there so you don't get distracted when I go to the next part. So when you're looking at them and we're looking at a head, or looking bird's eye view over the head of a cherubim, you can see that they have 4 faces to their head. So this is bird's eye view. We're looking down, and as you can see, as we're looking down, in the bottom of this sheet there's a face of a man. On the right side is the face of a lion, left is ox, and the top is an eagle. But we're facing down, and this living creature could, kind of faces, in one way, but it could turn its head in different positions, and you would see a different face. And each face talks. Like, it could be talking to you as a face of a man, and then it could just, turn its head to the side and be a face of ox and say something different. So, this might seem bizarre, but these are marvelous creatures, and God, has them very close to Him. So this is really important to Him. So when I drew this, I thought, okay, that's interesting, and then I put them together in a pattern and formation, and I began to see that the pattern of one living creature, when you add the other living creatures, you can see that it forms a similar pattern. So you can see here. Now this is I'm doing this exact to what it says in the scripture. So when you're looking at the head, this is what Ezekiel sees: man, ox, eagle, lion, just like that. But then when he sees them in formation, they look just like this. And there you can see that there's a different face that's facing the throne. So this is God's throne in the middle, and each face is facing it. Okay? And this is exactly the pattern that he's describing. Now here it's eagle, here it's ox, here it's man, here it's lion. but there's some unusual things that happen in this pattern. Okay? So when they form this formation, you can see at the bottom of each one it says, you know, ox, 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 ox. So when you're facing this formation, you only see one face, ox. Now if they were to turn their heads, okay, and they'd position it this way, you would see only eagle at the bottom. Eagle, 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 okay? So if they turn their head, you only see one face, but they all face God with the expression of their different four faces, okay? So what happened is this is a fractal. So you have a pattern of one living creature or cherubim now in four, okay? So I thought, wow, that's amazing. And this is kind of like wheels within wheels. So there's also wheels that are part of this design. So I drew those there. But then I thought, well, geez, what if I did this here where I took one and I had three and I got four. What if I did it again? Well, that's what this is. So now, before we had just one living creature, then we added three, right? So it formed this pattern. So this is very similar to the other one. But then I thought, well, if I go to do that, I can't do that on the page like that to scale. So what I did is I added it here. And so then I realized that, you know, you started with one living creature, and then you added 2, 3, and 4. Now you start with 1, and you add 1, 2, 3. And then this one is 4, 5, 6. And in this one, it's 7, 8, 9. And in this one, number 4 is 10, 11, 12. So now that pattern of 4 is 12. Okay? And then I thought, well, geez, that's cool. What if I did it again? So you can see this whole pattern just moves up. You know, it's like north, south, you know, like east, west, okay? You can see that same pattern. I just moved in each position, okay? And I thought, wow, what if I did it again? If I took that same pattern and let's say I started here, this was 1, remember this was 1 here, and then this is 1 here. Well, this is the same pattern again. Now it's smaller scale, it's half the scale, but you start with 1, and now it's 1, 2, 3. And then here's 2, 3, 4, 5. Or excuse me, 4, 5, 6. And then in 3, 7, 8, 9. So what's happening here, as you can see, up until 4, that this number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this pattern of 4 right here is exactly the same as this pattern of 4. So what's happening is just these guys were the 4, now they're here. But then you multiply again, you got 4 and another 4. And so now what you have is in this outer ring, it goes all the way, I don't know if you can see it here, but it goes to 36. So you start with 1, you add 3, you have 4, right? And then you have 4, and you multiply that by 3, and you have 12. And then you take that 12, you multiply it by 3, and now you have 36. And so this is all multiplication, like cell multiplication from that pattern. Okay? So remember, we just started with one guy, one cherubim. And from that one cherubim, now you can see you have this whole structure. Okay? And remember, with this whole thing, that the center is God's throne. We must remember that. These cherubim are closest to God's throne. Okay? So, then I began to look at this, and I saw that this pattern is a clock or a calendar or both. It's the same thing. Okay? So now let's now that I've kind of really dug into it and I've drawn this out, let me show you now what the information is within this structure we're looking at. Okay? Okay. So first off, let me mention the order of months and seasons. Okay? So remember, we started with one living creature, so we started with 1. Now, according to the Hebrew calendar, the first month of the year is the month Nisan. So when you're looking at the year, in the seasons of the year, so this would now be springtime. So within the spring, you have one. And within that spring season, remember these are the 4 seasons, you have 3 months that represent that season. So in Hebrew, that would be Nisan, Ziph, and Sivan. Now where these relate to the Gregorian calendars, this is towards the end of March and in April, May, and June. Now they're not exact, they're about, kind of halfway in between. So now what's happening is, as a calendar, now this is number 1 now is a season. And these are the months that represent that season. And then you go through, and the second season is summer. And the months there, 4, 5, and 6, in the Hebrew calendar, for the 4th month, it's called Tammuz, which is a pagan god that when I submitted this to God, He wouldn't allow me to put that on this calendar. So I left the Hebrew month here blank because there's none of them in the Bible. These are just the names in the Bible of these months. But the 5th month is Av, and the 6th month is Elul. Okay? So as you go around, you can see that each living creature now represents a season. Okay? And it goes around as the seasons then have 3 corresponding months to them. Okay? Now, if we look at this next pattern, so we looked at here, so we have 4 seasons, then we have 12 months, right? Well, each month, so that now each month is also divided up by quarters. Okay, so now this is just representative, it's not an exact thing, but basically the Hebrew calendar goes by a lunar calendar. So this little black dot here would be representative of the new moon. Okay, and then now what you have is you have new moon, and then you have cycles in the half cycle, and then this cycle would be the full moon, and then the other cycle. And so that whole cycle of the lunar calendar is 29.5 days. Okay, so now what you're seeing is that each month has a expression as well. Okay, and then you can see that and that goes through each one. Now, when you do that and you add up 29.5 days, you'll see that there are 354 days in the year. So what the Jews do is they add a month every, couple years. So then you end up with 13. But originally, guys, God's calendar was designed in such a way where the new moon was exactly 30 days. But this is pre-Noah's flood and pre-seasons, okay? So without getting too much into that, let's continue on this as a calendar, okay? So you can see that I have the signs. Now, in the Bible, they're called the Mazzaroth. In Babylon, they're called the 12 signs of the zodiac, okay? But these are the signs that every culture around the world recognizes. God says that there was no culture or language where they did not speak. So all over the world, in every culture and language, they see these 12 signs. But if you look in the stars, I don't know how you can see, a ram with horn. I mean, it's just not there when you look in the sky. But everybody sees the same thing. Well, why? Well, this is how God speaks to mankind. And so mankind cannot manipulate it. The only way that it's been manipulated is to have it focus on you. So the signs in the Gregorian calendar is designed to focus on you, your birthday. What is your sign? This is not your sign. This is God's signs, and this is God's order of time. And so it's not that you just sit in one sign and you wait once a year, or you read a horoscope that tells you stuff. It's not about that. It's His God. This is all God's expression of time. And so what happens is within a season, the expression of the months of those signs show what His story is, show what's happening in time. And then so then you can see these signs, and then I'll just go through some real quick, and I'll just show you how they really represent the Lord. So the year starts with Aries. Aries is the ram, or the Lamb. In Revelation, we see him as the Lamb of God. We see him as the Lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Well, what's that? That's the ram. That's Aries. The second one is Taurus, and Taurus is the ox, right? The third is Gemini. Now, Gemini is the twins. Well, who's that? Well, those are the 2 witnesses in Revelation, okay? And then you have Cancer. Well, what's that? Actually, I don't know. I haven't worked on that one yet. But then in Leo, you have Leo, which is the lion. So here you have the 4 faces of living creatures. So you have ox, lion. Within Capricorn, there's a sign called Aquila, which is a decan, and that is the eagle. Then Aquarius is man. So within these signs, you can see that there are decans. Okay, so there's a main sign for that month, or the expression of that month, and then you have decans. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 each month. So now what you're looking at is it's like a week. So just like you have the new moon, and then the phases of the moon, but then these signs also are like weeks. So it's like 4 weeks in a month. So each sign, so there's 12 signs, and then there's 13 decans, so you have 48. You have 48 weeks, or decans, or expressions of time. Now that number is significant because when you do the House of David calendar, there are 24 priest courses that they go through twice a year. So you have 24 times 2 is 48. So the priest courses and these signs are all representing time. They're representing a week. Okay? So without getting too much into that, I know that's a lot of information, but let's keep going. Okay. So now what we have is we have these Mazzaroth signs, we have the Jewish months, and we have this order of how God organized time. Okay? And so what the best thing to do with this is to get E.W. Bullinger's book on Witness of the Stars and follow basically his description of each one of the signs during that month. So for example, this one is a clock, but I have it where I have it here on the 10th month. Okay, so my hope is to find a calendar arm, and there is one. It's like, geez, it's like $200 or $300. And you know what? I'm going to put it in this video because it's very interesting. I really like what he's doing. But anyway, just for the sake of this video and what we're doing, you can see that the arm is on the 10th month. So basically what I'm going to do is each month I'm just going to move the arm to a different place. So then you can see this now is a calendar, where this one is a clock. Okay? So before I talk about the clock, let me talk about one other aspect of this that I want to describe, and that is you can see that before I talked about the center in the seasons as the cherubim, but you can see here. I don't know if it's coming out in the video well, but you have actually you can see it says white, red, black, and pale. Now, what I believe. The reason I put that there instead of the cherubim is I believe that the cherubim are expressed through these signs. So you have ox, lion, eagle, man. Okay. Now look, I thought I thought eagle would be here where you have it each position, but it's not. The sign here is Scorpio, and the eagle decan is Aquila, and that's in the 10th month. Okay. So what that is the center now of the seasons are ruled by these stars. Okay, so you can see right above white it says Aldebaran. In red you have Regulus. In black you have Antares, and in pale you have Fomalhaut. So you can see I'm basically describing to you the four horses in Revelation. Chapter 6. Now the guys on the horses are what are called the 4 spirits of the heavens. Okay? And they are military leaders. And in the Persians, they describe them as these stars as royal stars. Okay? And so the guys on the horses are called the four spirits of the heavens, and they are expressed in these stars. So each of those stars, guys, is the point by which each either solstice or equinox is marked in each of the constellations of that season. Okay? So for example, in the spring season, the sign of that season that the star appears in is Taurus. And then within Taurus is Antares, is the star that marks the spring equinox. Okay? In the summer, the constellation is Leo, and the star is Regulus, and that marks the summer solstice. Okay? So it's summer solstice, winter solstice, spring equinox, fall equinox. Okay, and within those, each of these stars represent the point by which they are delineated. Okay, and it's important to know that God put this in order and put this in place in His covenant with Noah, where He said, "Summer and winter, springtime and harvest will be perpetual." So prior to that, prior to the flood, there was only one season. It was always summer. It was the whole earth was a rainforest. But the Lord, through catastrophes and things of the flood, knocked the earth on the tilt of its axis, thus creating the four seasons. Okay, but that also added to all of this 4 days. So these guys also represent 4 additional days that you add to the calendar to better describe the order of that season. Okay, but prior to that, there were no seasons. So this is all part of God's covenant and contract with Noah. So that's what it is as a calendar. And keep in mind, all of time, everything is designed to rotate around God. You know, so these signs are not about you. You know, it's not about your sign. It is about God. And it's all of creation worships Him, and all of creation has an expression. And so we're learning about that, God's expression of time, and how to worship Him and figure out what He's doing, because He's doing things that are represented in time based on the things you're looking at here. Okay? So that is the pattern as a calendar. Now let's look at it as a clock. All right? So you have this thing up on your wall, and as you do, you know, the main thing you're going to focus on is the hour hand, because you think, you know, the hour hand, or what time is it, right? But as it's on your wall, I also want you to think about, you know, what season are we in? You know, so we're now in the winter season, and we're in the pale horse. Okay, and then we're also in the 10th month, which is the Hebrew month Tevet, and it's, you know, Capricorn. So yeah, we look at that as a calendar, but then you can see it also is a clock. So now, as a clock, how it works is the same way as a calendar. So, as a clock, there are actually 4 seasons within a 12-hour period. Just like there are 4 seasons and 4 expressions of the months, there are 4 expressions of daytime and 4 expressions of nighttime. So how it works is this. So just like the first season is spring and the first month is Nisan, well, in God's clock, the day starts at sundown. Okay, so you can see I have this as 6. So this could be either 6 a.m. or p.m. So how it works is the day starts when the sun goes down. And so when the sun goes down, that begins the spring of the evening, right? So you have, this was the spring of the year, now it's the spring of the night. And so these hours, the first hour, second and third hour, would be 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and 8 p.m. So those hours represent the beginning of the nighttime. The sun just went down right there, okay? And then what happens is, as it goes around, So you can see these hours here, and these hours are also represented in the hours of the day that the Bible talks about as well at the time of Jesus. Okay, so at that time, let's just look at how this works. So at that time, let's say this is daytime. Okay, so let's say it's 6 a.m. and the sun is rising. Well, that would be the first hour of the day. Second hour of the day would be 7 a.m. Third hour of the day would be 8 a.m. Okay, so you can see now that this 1, 2, 3 is all part of that expression of that time. Now, Jesus called these watches. So he said, watch and pray because you do not know the hour when the Son of Man appears. And he describes these as the nighttime watches. Okay, so he said the first watch, and that would be 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. And then the second watch would go from 9 p.m., 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Then he said the midnight watch is the third watch. That would go midnight, 1, 2. And then the fourth watch would go 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. Okay, you see that? So before these were seasons, okay? But now instead of seasons, they are watches. And those watches are exactly the same as the seasons. So at nighttime you have spring, summer, fall, winter. And so the pockets of time, the 3-hour blocks of times are expressions of the same seasons. So when the day comes up and the sun comes up, that is spring. And then from 9, 10 to 11, that is summer. Like the warmest part of the day. And then the sun starts to go down, and that would be, and then the coolest part of the day before it turns night is like the winter. See that? I know. It's a lot of information, but this is all the stuff I'm trying to tell you guys to see this thing. Okay, and so now you can see that obviously. You have, as the calendar goes around once, and again, I'm hoping to find an hour hand that will do that will go around once a year, like a 365 day hour hand, right? Like a clock, because it would move so slow you wouldn't see it, but you would have something that like another one like this where you could see it go around so slowly, and you could see what month we're in, okay? But in the meantime, we can use this, and you can still look at that and know your calendar, know where you are, okay? So that's my piece on the on this clock. I want to spend some time on it, show you the expression of time, and again, I encourage you to get the book because it'll show you what these signs look like, show you what the decans look like, show you what these things mean. And so within that month, you can look at them and say, wow, there's, what is this thing? We're in the 10th month and it's a half goat, half fish. What does that mean? Honestly, I don't know. But there's an eagle in there. I know what that means. And there's an arrow in there. I know what that means. And there's a dolphin. I know what that means. So I know what the decans are for the 10th month. But we're learning this stuff, guys. We don't have all the answers. Okay? So these are mysterious things, but at the same time, they're simple things. Okay? But you can see that within these, you have like the 12 tribes of Israel. You have like the 12 apostles. Okay? And then you have in the center, you have like the living creatures or the cherubim. And I'm introducing you also to the 4 spirits of the heavens. And they, again, are the military leaders. So very, very important. Okay, so that's my piece on the clock. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. If there are any questions and everything, ask away. But that'll do it. And I bless you guys and hope to see you soon.